Hello, everyone. My name is Nzinga Young, and I'm the Senior Manager of Events and Experience here at Farm Sanctuary. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Sanctuary Speaker Series. Today, we have the honor of interviewing New York Times bestselling author, internationally recognized speaker, and founding member and fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, Dr. Michael Greger. Dr. Greger has lectured at the Conference on World Affairs, testified before Congress, and was invited as an expert witness in the defense of Oprah Winfrey in the infamous meat defamation trial. He's a graduate of Cornell University School of Agriculture and Tufts University School of Medicine. Three of his recent books, How Not to Die, How Not to Die Cookbook, and How Not to Diet, all became instant bestsellers. The proceeds he receives from the sales of his latest book, How to Survive a Pandemic, will all go to charity. Dr. Greger will be interviewed by Farm Sanctuary Board Secretary Nirva Patel, former corporate lawyer and passionate advocate for animal rights. Most recently, she served as an executive producer of the Game Changers documentary, an evidence-based film featuring elite plant-based athletes. Nirva earned a BS in biomedical engineering from Boston University, a JD from the New England School of Law, and is currently a candidate for the Masters in Animal Law and Public Policy at Tufts University. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Greger and Nirva Patel.
It's an honor to meet you, Dr. Greger. We appreciate the time that you took out of your day for us at Farm Sanctuary. My name is Nirva Patel. I'm a board member, and I'm also studying at Tufts University in the Center for Animal Law and Public Policy. And it's so interesting that you were also a medical student there. So
Indeed.
in common. I enjoyed reading your book, How Not to Die, and loved learning about the incredible benefits of some of the foods I grew up with, like amla and saffron. I had no idea how amazing they are for us. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Great. So if you don't mind, I'd like to get started.
Let's do it.
All right. We hear you played a major role in growing our bulk mail campaign, which has expanded into our current direct mail campaign, which to date will bring over $1.5 million this year. We now do 6 acquisition appeals each year and reach out to 400,000 new prospects with each appeal. Our total marketing budget, direct marketing budget, is projected to be over $5 million next year. Can you talk about your time at Farm Sanctuary when you were a volunteer there many years ago?
Oh, yeah. My God, that's a blast from the past. Because I was, what was my title? Infectious disease coordinator or something?
Okay.
At the time, when was this? Like late 80s. Bovine spongiform encephalopathy, mad cow disease was raging. And I was at the agriculture school at Cornell. And, I had access to the veterinary library and the ag school and the ag library. And so started doing research on behalf of Farm Sanctuary to learn more about these so-called prion diseases, which this was before the Nobel Prize in medicine was awarded for the discovery of prions. And so, they thought it was a so-called slow virus and all these interesting theories. And so as a biophysics major, I nerded out over mad cow disease, and Farm Sanctuary saw some of my work and wanted, I talked about how risky downed animals were. So animals too sick or injured to even stand being funneled into the food supply. And we had no idea. Maybe they're down. Yeah, maybe they have a broken leg. Maybe they have a broken leg because they had a neurological disease and fell over. And so they realized that there was this. So for years, Farm Sanctuary was trying to get the Down Animal Protection Act passed to make sure these animals are euthanized and not, transported to slaughter, often with chains, very inhumane, and could not get any traction. People, were caring about their cats and dogs, but just didn't kind of, It didn't, at least the politicians weren't concerned about it. But then, so they said, wait a second, there's this human health argument too. It's actually not safe to be eating animals that are too sick or injured to even stand and walk on their own volition. And so they needed kind of an expert to, and I had testified in defense of Oprah Winfrey in the, infamous, meat defamation trial. And so I was, so I did a bunch of papers for Farm Sanctuary, and what happened? The good news is that that's what did it. And it's kind of sad that the kind of selfish reasons, like, we got the Down on Protection Act passed, but only after there was this kind of human health implication. But hey, it doesn't matter. The cows don't care either way. And I don't care either way as long as people are healthier. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. Thank you. You talk about primordial prevention. Describe as a strategy to prevent whole societies from experiencing epidemics of chronic disease risk factors. With respect to how COVID has manifested in the United States compared to other countries, there's a theory that the United States, among other reasons, suffered the most because we were already experiencing a health epidemic. Do you think that we would have been better off if we all had followed a whole foods, plant-based diet?
Well, consider the risk factors for a severe course of COVID-19: obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure, all of which can be prevented, arrested, or even reversed with plant-based diet and lifestyle. So, look, and you don't even have to be obese. Even, just being overweight, having a BMI of 28 puts you at nearly 5 times the risk of suffering a severe COVID-19 course. The average BMI in the United States, 29. So even being skinnier than the average American, you can still have so much excess body fat that it puts you at significantly higher risk. And so that's why this is the time to take better care of yourself. Start cleaning out your pantry to protect yourself not only from chronic disease risks in the future, but infectious disease risks right here and now.
Absolutely. You were a vegetarian in college, but eventually went vegan. What influenced your transition?
Well, it was all, the whole story really goes back to my childhood with my grandmother. My grandmother was, I was just a kid, and my grandmother was basically sent home in a wheelchair to die, diagnosed with end-stage heart disease. She already had so many, bypass surgeries, basically run out of plumbing at some point, confined in a wheelchair, crushing chest pain. Her life was over at age 65. But then she heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers. And what happened next is actually detailed in Pritikin's biography. He talks about Francis Gregor as one of the death's door patients. They wheeled her in and she walked out. Though she was given a medical death sentence at age 65, thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet until age 96, to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So that's why I went into medicine, why I practice lifestyle medicine, why I started nutritionfacts.org, why I wrote the book, How Not to Die, why all the proceeds I received from the sale of my books are all donated directly to charity. I just want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family.
Wow.
So from a personal health standpoint, as a kid, I didn't realize how revolutionary what happened to my grandmother was. At the time, we didn't think heart disease was reversible, right? We didn't used to think like type 2 diabetes was reversible either. And so that's what Pritikin, first showed. But, for me as a kid, grandma went to the doctor and got better. That's what you're supposed to do. You go to the doctor, you get better. It didn't occur to me how revolutionary. So it didn't, strike me really to change my habits at the time. Only 1990, when Dr. Dean Ornish published his lifestyle heart trial, proving with something called quantitative angiography that indeed heart disease could be reversed, arteries opened up without drugs, without surgery. and so essentially the cure to our number one killer of men and women was a plant-based diet and lifestyle program. And I was like, wow, what else do you need, right? Number one killer, number one reason me and all my loved ones are going to die. There's only one diet ever been proven to reverse the progression. Well, sign me up. And so that's what really did it. Though later with, my work with Farm Sanctuary, I realized that there was all these other benefits, right? I think once you stop eating animals for whatever reason, like you do it for the climate or you do it for like workers' rights or whatever reason you choose, then you don't have your defenses up and you're willing to hear, to kind of open your mind. So look, someone sends you some horrible slaughterhouse video. If you're a meat eater, you're not going to watch the video, right? But who doesn't want to be told what they're doing is good? You're a good person, right? And so it's like, oh, there's another reason the meat industry is bad. Let me see. And so then I was kind of more open to the animal suffering component too, and realized that the food choices I've made that prevent human suffering also reduce non-human suffering too. So it's like, and now look with the climate, it's like the win from all sides. And so it feels good to, even though my primary concern as a physician is human health, but hey, if it has all these knock-on benefits, all the better.
Right. And there is this theory that, when you look at all of the world's problems, we should look at them with a One Health approach, and that we should be identifying the environment to include animals and humans rather than just climate change. So I hear what you're saying. As a doctor, can you easily tell if a person eats a plant-based diet by looking at them or running a test?
The average American is overweight, nearly obese. The average vegan is optimal weight. And so by looking at somebody, you can say, that's probably someone who's been vegan for a long time or eating healthy for a long time or a marathon runner or something. Obviously it's a bell curve and people are all over the place. But there's actually there's tests that you can do toenail clippings, and you can actually find out what people are eating, which are important for biomarker studies. Like you put people on a vegan diet, you want to make sure, and then you get some result at the other end. You want to make sure, well, did they actually stick with it? And so there are kind of biomarker tests you can do. You can take someone's urine and actually tell based on the metabolomics, all the little metabolites in the bloodstream, kind of what they fall into. And in terms of lifelong vegans, there hasn't been many studies on lifelong vegans. So we don't really know in terms of what are their health outcomes.
In your professional opinion, and I know that we have this argument all the time in the Indian community, if you're raised as a vegan or a vegetarian, you will not be as tall as the children who consume milk. And does height have anything to do with diet, especially a vegan diet?
Well, so if you actually look at the Adventist study, vegetarian children were actually about an inch taller on average. So, not that doesn't really matter, but there does not appear to be any differential in height. But this is talking about parts of the world where there isn't food insecurity. So there certainly can be growth stunting on any kind of diet if there's insufficient nutrition.
Right. Okay. Thank you. How Not to Diet came out in December of last year. How were you able to write How to Survive a Pandemic, which is a 600-page book, so quickly?
It was, so I was doing my book tour. I had a 200-city book tour of How Not to Diet. I only got to about 50 cities before the whole world kind of came crashing down. But that just gave me an opportunity to, write the next book. And if you remember, I have this infectious disease background, with mad cow and I did my postgraduate work at Public Health Hospital, did a lot of HIV work. And I had already written about pandemics. I've already written about, but just no one paid it any attention. But finally, now people are paying attention. So I said, this is the time. So quick. And so publisher was, really put on it was like Operation Warp Speed, but not for vaccines, but for the book.
Right. Got it. Well, congratulations. I know you've been writing a lot, but how has this pandemic been for you as a medical doctor? And also, how has it been for your family?
Well, so for me, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. That was I kind of overextended myself on the tour and was looking forward to another, 10 months or 8 months, and not sure I could really pull it off. I was doing multiple cities on single days. It was really quite exhausting. So all of a sudden, I got this reprieve, and I got to write a whole new book. I was able to kind of use that time, and I'm just so privileged to be able to have the kind of freedom to be able to work from home and not expose myself. And thankfully, my family is too. And so I realized that's certainly not the case everywhere. And so I just count my blessings.
Got it. Well, it's good to hear you're all well. Um, you mentioned a few household items that are helpful for cleaning surfaces and sanitizing hands. What are some things we should all have in our pandemic preparedness arsenal?
Oh, so yeah, there's a pandemic preparedness kind of checklist for mostly for the next pandemic. And so right now, grocery shelves are still being restocked. I mean, this is a very mild pandemic. But it's important to have this to fulfill this checklist for all of a sudden. What if all of a sudden the grocery stores, what if the supply chains completely break down? What if doctors aren't showing up to work? And what if the electricity goes out? And what if all of a sudden water purification goes out? These are all not unlikely scenarios with some of these bird flu viruses circulating now 100 times deadlier. In fact, the CDC predicts the next pandemic most likely will be this H7N9 bird flu pathogen, 100 times deadlier. And so you could just imagine what kind of devastation that would wreak. And so, so there's this whole checklist in how to survive a pandemic, critically important to do. But right now, you should be able to get anything, nothing you have to particularly stock up on. For this particular pathogen, surfaces are not a primary means of transmission. So early on in the pandemic, we really didn't know. And so, people were, disinfecting, delivered food and groceries, but that does not appear to be necessary. It's primarily airborne transmission through both respiratory droplets and really tiny droplets that kind of float in the air. And so the way to not get this virus is for the virus not to get to you, and that is distance, staying away from other people as much as possible. Particularly you want to stay away from prolonged periods indoors, crowded, confined spaces with poor ventilation. Those would be the riskiest places that you want to stay out of.
The quarantine itself has come with its own health risks. People are often indoors for days at a time, engaging in less physical activity and consuming more calories. What are some ways we can all stay healthy and active as we quarantine?
So look, this is the time to clean out your pantry. I mean, now you're no longer walking by the donut shop every day, and your kids aren't getting cupcake celebrations, and there isn't a bowl of candy on your coworker's desk. And like, you have control over your environment, maybe for the first time in your adult life, often for many people. And so look, you can have no junk in the house. We have a no junk in the house rule. Like, if you get hungry enough, you're going to eat that apple just because there's nothing else there. There's no bags of chips. There's no cookies. There's just healthy food. And so that's how then you don't need willpower. You just, you get hungry, you eat. And so that's really the best way to do it. And there's all sorts of things you can do indoors. Unfortunately, I'm in transit now, and so don't have my treadmill with me. But you can use a treadmill desk, and you could get work done, phone calls, watch TV, whatever. I'm getting a little movement in throughout the day.
Okay, great. Common conditions we see in birds rescued from factory farms are reproductive cancer, impacted eggs, external and internal parasites, upper respiratory infections, feather loss, and a number of other crippling conditions due to inadequate nutrition and overpacked cages. Could you explain how the confined, overcrowded, and stressful conditions in factory farm animals create a dangerous environment for the spread of viruses?
Yeah, we overcrowd tens of thousands of animals in these cramped, filthy football field-sized sheds to lie, beak to beak or snout to snout atop their own waist. It's just a breeding ground for disease. There's the sheer numbers of animals, the overcrowding, the stress, crippling their immune systems, the ammonia from the decomposing waste, burning their lungs, lack of fresh air, lack of sunlight. You put all these factors together, what you really have is kind of a perfect storm environment for the emergence and spread of these so-called super strains of influenza. And the bottom line is that it's not worth risking the lives of millions of people for the sake of cheaper chicken.
Has the medical profession changed in recent years? Are doctors becoming more aware of the impacts of our food choices?
There's tremendous strides happening, not only throughout society. I mean, with McDonald's, announcing they're going to have a, plant-based meat option. The writing is certainly on the wall of major dairies declaring bankruptcy because of this constellation of new consumer choices in the dairy aisle. Same thing's happening in the meat aisle. Really tremendous progress being made in terms of transitioning over to more plant-based options. And we're seeing same kind of recognition within the medical profession. One of the fastest growing specialties is lifestyle medicine. So I encourage any physicians out there to join the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So that's using, lifestyle approaches like diet and exercise, not only to prevent disease, but to treat, potentially reverse it as well. And so, that's every year it gets bigger and bigger, the conferences, and sadly this year it had to be all virtual, and I miss all my friends there. But yeah, there's thousands of practitioners across the country that are opening entire clinics devoted to lifestyle medicine.
Great. And going back to the stress of these contained, overcrowded animals, it must impact their stress and cortisol levels. Does that then impact the quality of the food and the health of people consuming these overstressed flesh?
Oh, so if you look at the Pew Commission on Industrial Farm Animal Production, they're very clear that these extreme confinement practices, like these battery cages for egg-laying hens or gestation crates for pregnant pigs, have adverse human health consequences, and indeed, even something like providing straw bedding for pigs, just so they don't have the immunosuppressive stress of lying on bare concrete their whole lives, significantly decreases swine flu transmission rates. The same kind of conditions. I mean, they're the ones, these animals are the ones that use a little social distancing. They need a little, breathing room themselves. So the same kind of conditions that foster the growth of diseases among the animals can also become so-called zoonotic pathogens, jump from animals to humans. That's why the way we treat animals can have global public health implications.
Yep. A major issue our caregivers experience is the negative impact from antibiotic-resistant bacteria. How is the widespread use of antibiotics in factory farming affecting animals? And how does this also affect humans and the environment?
Yeah, that's really a critical issue in medicine, is the dramatic growth in multi-drug resistant bacteria. And so, we have these miracle drugs, antibiotics, and we don't no longer, a scraped knee is no longer a mortal wound. We can actually do surgery now, cut people open without people dying from infections. And we take these things for granted, but we are headed towards a post-antibiotic world if we do not stop the overuse of antibiotics. That happens not only in medicine, but most antibiotics sold in the United States aren't actually given to people. They are given to animals who aren't even sick. They're not even treating the disease, but to promote growth and prevent disease in such a stressful, unhygienic, crowded environment. And what that does is it selects for these bacteria that are resistant. Kills off 99% of the bacteria, but the 1% that's resistant then spreads, grows, and then can jump to us, not only from those animal products themselves. So, for example, antibiotic-resistant bacteria on chicken causing urinary tract infections in women that are resistant to first-line antibiotics, but manure runoff can get on vegetables, right? So it's not like the people out there can be like, oh, I don't have to worry about that issue because I don't eat those kind of products. No, it affects everybody. You can be infected from someone who eats meat and get secondarily infected, even without eating any of those products. So this is something, so reforming animal agriculture is critical, regardless of what you eat, even if just for your own selfish benefit of the health of your family.
That's very interesting. Despite the challenges of this year, and we know we've had many, is there anything about the COVID-19 pandemic that gives you hope for the future?
Well, the silver lining is that this could kind of be the dry run we needed, the kind of the fire drill to wake us from our complacency and reform the food system before us to like take the advice of the American Public Health Association, the largest and oldest association of public health professionals in the world, who declared no more factory farms. They're calling for a moratorium on factory farms, and they're doing it because they want to protect the public's health.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. Your insights are inspiring a movement. They're igniting young minds and keeping us all very healthy. Thank you. And I look forward to when our paths cross again. I appreciate all of your time.
Absolutely. Anytime. Looking forward to helping out in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
To hear more from Dr. Greger, please visit nutritionfacts.org to view videos on more than 2,000 health topics with new videos and articles uploaded almost daily. We wish you and your families the best this holiday season and look forward to having you again at our next Sanctuary Speaker Series.